Hello and welcome back to Geek and Speak, the Geek and Seek podcast. Today, hey guys, we're talking about Final Fantasy coming to Magic the Gathering Universes Beyond style. Universes Beyond is standard legal. I have a lot of thoughts and opinion on that, mostly negative, but that's not what we're here to talk about today because besides the fact that this is coming into standard, besides the fact that it's overpriced set, there's a lot of really cool cards. And we are excited to talk about some of these really cool cards. So join with me today is Jason. How's it going, Jason?
Going good. Forgive me if I seem tired. I played 27 holes of golf today. But that's, if I could spend my off day in any way, that would be the way that I want to do it.
That actually just sounds like a skill issue now that you say that. And we also have Preston with us. How's it going, Preston?
Going pretty good. The prices have me a little worried, but if those come down, this might be one of my favorite sets we've had in a long time, actually, which I was not expecting going into it.
Yeah, I actually think that the aesthetic of Final Fantasy works a lot better than I expected. I mean, it's still, monsters and swords and magic. It works. It works. And then, hi, I am your host, Morgan. I'm also surprised at how much I dig the set. So have you guys ever played Final Fantasy? I've never played Final Fantasy.
Nope, never played a single Final Fantasy ever. I know nothing about this universe. I know nothing about this IP. All I know is that these cards are pretty sweet.
What about you, Preston?
I've never played a Final Fantasy, but I am big into Kingdom Hearts, which is Final Fantasy right? Plus Disney.
Yeah.
Well, it's mostly original characters after a certain point, but early on, there's a lot of Final Fantasy in there. So I have some love for a couple of the characters.
Right on. And then I also should say this, well, before we get too far into this episode, is that normally I introduce Jason as Editor Jason, but we are trying something new today. We are editing live. Is that going to work? I don't know. I have so many tabs open on my computer to try to make this work. If it works, awesome. If it doesn't work, Jason goes back to editor next week. But if you would like to support the show, you could do all the YouTube algorithm things, that being liking the video, leaving comments, becoming subscribed if you have not done that already. Check out all of our other videos. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can head over to patreon.com/geekandseek YouTube. We are all heading, the three of us, to MagicCon Vegas next month. So any extra cash that we get in from our ad revenue or Patreon for the next month, it's going to go to Jason and Preston. Make sure that they have a little bit of extra money in their pockets for food and stuff while we're at the con. And if you want to see us at the con, you want to jam some games, say hi, we will be there. Come up and say hi. All right. Preston, why don't you go ahead and start us off with your first card?
Yeah, I can get us started. My first card is Aith, Last Ancient. For 2, a green and a white, you have a legendary creature, human cleric druid, 3/5 with lifelink, and raise. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. If you gain 7 or more life this turn, return that card to the battlefield instead. Pretty simply, I just want this for my life gain deck. I can pretty easily get that 7 to go a lot of turns, so it's going to be an all-star once I get my hands on it and throw it in there.
See, my thing with this card, I don't know how effective it's going to be all the time in just a standard life gain deck, because how often are you filling your graveyard with creatures? I mean, throughout the game, it's going to happen. And then if you drop this turn 7, 8, and you got, 1 or 2 good creature options in there, fine. But I think that you would probably want to be a little bit more reliably putting creatures into your graveyard, right?
Maybe. I mean, it's just an okay value card. In like the mid to late game, like, maybe after the first board wipe already happened, then maybe this is okay there. I could see that being the case, because I should have said this also at the beginning, is that either the day this video is coming out or the day before this video is coming out, I was also on the Commander Clash podcast, and we were talking about some of our favorite cards on the set. And something that we had talked about is because so many of the creatures in this set, I think all of the creatures in this set are legendary, that your brain automatically thinks, oh, maybe this is a commander. But you have to reframe your thinking here. I don't necessarily think that all of these creatures are meant to be good commanders, mostly just for like flavor reasons. You know, it's a character in the video game, so it has to be a legendary, right? Because it's a specific character, right? Even if it's not the best commander. Because I don't think this is a very good commander. But in the 99 of a green, white, X life gain deck, this actually seems like a good card in the mid to late game after the first board wipes already happened or something, just a way to start rebuilding, and it's going to give you the back to hand seems more reliable. But I mean, when Preston's popping off, he's really popping off with his life gain deck. 7 or more is not that hard to reach once you get a couple of your engines going. So I could definitely see this being a good engine piece, but yeah, I don't know if you specifically have to fill your graveyard to make it better. I think it's just like an okay later in the game.
I will say that I can't think of a deck that I want to put this in. My Shauna Purifying Blade deck. I definitely want to get this and throw that into that deck because I gain enough life in that deck for it to be useful. And there is going to be instances where I'll gain 7 life in a turn. Like it's not going to happen too often, but I definitely feel like I'll be able to proc that. So I have a deck that this could go into.
Yeah, even putting it back to your hand's not bad. It's still a free card getting back.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean it's a card you put in your deck, right? So like obviously if you get to cast it a second time, you're not going to be that sad about it. It's like card draw, kind of. You know, it's nice.
And a 3/5 lifelinker for 4 is not a bad creature.
Yeah, I mean it starts
a solid creature.
If it gets to not the first turn, unless you have like a Lightning Greaves or something to give it haste or a Concordant Crossroads or something, but it gets you halfway there by itself to gain this to the 7 life with the lifelink. So that's worth noting. Yeah, I like it. All right, Jason, what is your first card?
So the first card that I'm going to talk about is Zeldenched. I think I said that right. I don't know. Flame me in the comments if I didn't. Go ahead. For 2 to red, it's a legendary creature, human monk, a 0/3. It has, you may play an additional land on each of your turns. First of all, that in red is just fantastic. And then it says Zeldenched gets +1/+0 for each land you control, and at the beginning of your end step, return a land you control to its owner's hand. So that last part kind of like counteracts the additional land drop, but the fact that you can kind of get into some land shenanigans with this. Like, I don't know that this is necessarily going to go into every single mono red deck, but this might be one of the best like landfall cards in a landfall deck, like a Gruul landfall deck or something like that. This has to be one of the best cards in the whole deck because it's giving you the additional land, but then it's also putting a land back in your hand, so you have guaranteed land drops to trigger all of your other landfall stuff. And it's only 3 mana. It's only a 0/3, so it's like it's not going to be doing a ton of damage if you don't have very many lands. Like say you only have like 5 or 6 lands and it's a 6/3. It's still pretty vulnerable because it only has 3 toughness. But this could also just be a card that you just kill people with later in the game. I mean, if it's like turn 8 or 9 and you're playing in a deck that you have green and you've ramped out a ton of lands and you have like 13, 14 lands on the battlefield, I mean, at that point, turn 7 or 8, if you have that many lands, you're definitely going to be able to kill at least one person. I would imagine most of the time anyways.
Yeah, what do you think about this one, Preston?
I really like it. I always like it when they get to find a unique way to introduce a mechanic you normally don't see in a color. So the additional land in red, but then you have to bounce it at the end. That's just really cool to me. It's kind of like some of the red ones where like maybe you make a treasure or something each turn. But yeah, I'm excited to see this in some Gruul or some green, blue, red decks. I think this could be a really fun one. Because this will never be your scariest creature in those decks. So it's probably not going to get hit by removal, like targeted removal, but it's still going to bring you a lot of value.
I also want to point out that this immediately slots into all of those Obeka decks or any of those decks that focus around like ending the turn. Because if you get rid of that end step trigger, then you're not returning lands to your hand. And now you just actually have playing an additional land from a red source, which is pretty cool.
That actually is kind of spicy. If you just like turn it into an exploration in Grixis, That's actually kind of spicy.
Exploration that like gets bigger for each land you have.
Right.
Like it's a I like it. I think this is a really fun card. And I think people are actually going to like use it a lot more than we think that they will.
Yeah, I remember having a hard time evaluating this card when they previewed it because it was one of the first cards they previewed. But Jason already mentioned why I think this card will actually get a decent amount of play in the Gruul style landfall decks. The bouncing it back to your hand is not even a downside in landfall decks because you get to the point where you have like multiple instances of you can play an additional land. So you're never going to feel behind. And it's just going to guarantee that you're going to have lands for your next turn. So I had a Gruul landfall deck that I played on the show a couple years ago. I would definitely have put this in there. If Tatiova could play this, it definitely would. I mean, Preston has shown us before, I think on an episode that we haven't released before, that there's a lot of power in just using bounce lands to bounce themselves back to the hand, like not bouncing a different land, just use the bounce land to bounce itself so that you can guarantee your next landfall triggers later in the game. And I think this does it in red, which I think is it's pretty spicy. You wouldn't ever play this as like a commander, though, right? Like this is what I was talking about. Like you have to change your framing. You would never play this as a commander.
I don't see how you would do
build
this.
Yeah, I don't know
as
how
a commander.
If someone manages to do it, that'd be awesome. But
not unless you try to do like a companion type of thing.
So I mean, there's like artifacts that can land ramp. So maybe if you just go like really heavy on lands in your deck and you play all of that ramp and you just get it, so maybe you could do like some kind of Voltron stuff, but then you have to like use all your tutors to find your like sundial of the infinite to end the turn and stuff. I don't know. There's
seems
more
like
powerful.
Too much work to make a viable commander.
Yeah, there's better Voltron options. All right, my first card is Champions from Beyond. I should also say that while I was just on the Commander Clash podcast talking about my favorite cards from the set, I will not repeat any of the cards that I said. I will occasionally talk about cards that someone else on the podcast said so that we can talk about them here because I think they're cool and we should keep talking about them. And this is one of those. I think it was Phil that chose this card. This is Champions from Beyond. For X white. It's an enchantment. When it enters, you create X 1/1 colorless hero creature tokens. Light Party. Whenever you attack with 4 or more creatures, you scry 2 and draw a card. Hey, that's like, what is that, preordained? That's pretty good. And then Full Party, whenever you attack with 8 or more creatures, those creatures get +4/+4 until end of turn. Any single part of this is actually kind of decent. So we already, in token decks, really like the pay X, make X tokens. This isn't like the best one, but it's not like terrible. Like there are better ones, but this is definitely not like unplayable if you just do it for that. But then it's also going to give you card selection and card draw, and later in the game when you have a really big board, it's also kind of an anthem. It's a finisher, so that's really exciting. And obviously you would play this in token decks, but I also have a Naya Go Wide deck that doesn't have a lot of token stuff. It's just a lot of 1 and 2 mana creatures. I think those kind of decks like Jetmir is a good option for that as well. These just like Go Wide decks, whether or not it's tokens, I think can utilize this because I think the strongest part is the preordaining. You get to like attack with 4 more creatures and you get to preordain. That seems kind of spicy. But it's not unrealistic to get to that 8 or more creatures in the right deck. So what do you guys think about Champions from Beyond?
I think this card is insanely good because the first thing that I noticed when I saw this card was you don't even have to make tokens.
No, X could be 0 and it's still okay.
Tokens and you just spend 2 mana on this, that could, like, if you have the right board state, that could just end the game. That could just end the game.
Also, you could drop it on turn 2 just because, like, you'll be like, oh, I'll make creatures later. Because a lot of these other make tokens for X mana, a lot of them are not good until the end of the game. So having one of those spells that is like an okay card early game is also really nice.
So I think this is an amazing card because it fits every part of the game that I evaluate. When I look at a card, I've said this before on the channel, I evaluate how good is it at the beginning, how good is it in the middle, and how good is it at the end. You can play this and it will be effective in every phase of the game. You can play it early for, little to X equals 0, and you just have a nice enchantment that's going to give you, card draw and buff your creatures later in the game. Mid game, it has a lot of different purposes. It can help build a board state. It can help you draw into some cards that you need. And then, late game, end game, this can be something that you drop for a lot of mana and then swing with all the creatures that you have. Or you could just drop it for 2 mana and swing with all the creatures that you have and potentially end the game. So I love this card a lot.
Yeah, what do you think, Preston?
Yeah, I really like this one. Like you guys said, it's good whenever you play it, really. And it's an enchantment, which when you're playing one of those white tokeny decks, it's very easy to just accidentally make like a sub theme of your deck enchantments. Like there's just a lot of cards that want to do token stuff that also like it when you play enchantments. So it's good for that. Yeah. This is definitely going in my Benny deck, and it's going to be pretty good there.
Oh, it's
this is going into the Thales for sure. For sure, Thales is going to play with this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you guys are also high on it. All right, Preston, what is your second card?
All right, next up, we have Ultimate Magic Holy. It's 2 and a white for an instant. Permanents you control gain indestructible until end of turn. If this spell was cast from exile, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you this turn. Foretell for 2 and a white. It's just another in the long line of white cards that protect your stuff at instant speed and maybe even gives you a little bit of something too. I just like those cards.
So where is this in the hierarchy of those cards? Because obviously it's not as good as Teferi's Protection, but Teferi's Protection is too good. That card was probably...
No, it's not.
No. It was actually probably too strong. But if you want more than one of those effects in white, is this the next one you play, or are there other ones you're looking at?
You play all of them.
Well, but there's 8 of them now. You can't play all 8.
I'm gonna look. I need to remind myself exactly what this does. But the first one that comes to mind, I think it's Dawn's Truth or is it Dawn's Truce?
I think it's Truce from Bloomburrow.
From Bloomburrow. Yep, exactly. Yeah, gift a card. You and permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn. If the gift was promised, permanents you control also gain indestructible. That's 2 mana. And giving a card to somebody, which I don't think matters considering what you're getting out of it. So I think that I don't know that I would play this over that. The only caveat is you do have the option to Yu-Gi-Oh! Trap card somebody with it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Foretell is really, really potent because some of these effects are only protect your stuff, right? So, Clever Concealment is another really popular one. That only protects your stuff. It doesn't protect you. But if this is Foretold, then it also is a fog. It also keeps you from taking damage. And Foretelling is really powerful. I don't remember what the card was that we were talking about. Oh, it was the dragon, the black dragon that you tutor something up and you put in exile that Jason was talking about last week on the podcast. What's really powerful about that is because it's safe. It's safe in exile. It's not in your deck. It's not in your graveyard. It's not in your hand. Your opponent can't interact with it. And so
until it's on the stack.
Right. Yeah. So I think Foretell, is heavily underrated for that same reason, is that it's not hard to say, this is in your hand. And maybe you have to discard down to hand size. This isn't doing anything, but you're I'm probably going to need it later. Just foretell it. That way you don't have to discard down to hand size, right? But then you also have this this trick that's protected later that they can't interact with. So,
I do think that it's now that I'm thinking more about that fog side of it, I think that this might just be an auto include now in white decks.
Really?
Because the versatility of it is really good. You can just use it as a keep my stuff from being blown up, or you can use it as a keep my stuff from being blown up and prevent all the damage that I would get.
Because it's all damage, it's not just combat damage.
Yeah, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you this turn.
Black X spells that deals damage like an expropriate. It's okay, bye guys, 2-player game.
Yeah, We'll have to keep it in mind. We should do like a tier list of all of these white protection spells and see how they go up against each other. That would be interesting. All right, Jason, what do you got next?
So next up, I have Kefka, Court Mage. For 2, a blue, a black, and a red, it is a legendary creature, human wizard. It's a 4/5, and it says when Kefka enters or attacks, each player discards a card. Then you draw a card for each card type among cards discarded this way. And then it has pay 8 generic. Each opponent sacrifices a permanent of their choice. Transform Kefka. Activate only as a sorcery. And then it transforms into Kefka, Ruler of the Ruin. A 5/7 flyer that says whenever an opponent loses life during your turn, you draw that many cards. Wow. I mean, it's kind of a big ask. It's kind of a big ask to get to that backside. I mean, that's 13 mana that you got to put into this thing. But oh my God, if you get it to that backside, you could draw every single card in your deck if you want to, just depending on how you have the deck built. I mean, and it is when your opponents lose life during your turn, but it's not just like when you cause them to lose life. So if your opponents have things that are causing them to lose life, or if your opponents do things to themselves that cause them to lose life, like activate an ancient tomb or
Fetch land.
A fetch land, something like that.
They draw cards and you have a Shieldred in play.
You're drawing cards from that. There's just a lot of cool things that you can do with this card. Now, you are building this as the commander of a deck. I don't see a whole lot of use for it in like just throwing it into decks unless it's already decks that kind of deal with like big mana. Because like I said, it is 13 mana to get it to that other side. But then also you got to think about how, it's a discard trigger when it enters and you're drawing cards. So it's at, least it could be 5 mana draw 4. If you're playing in a 4-player game and 4 different card types are discarded, it could potentially be a 5 mana draw 4, which is on a 4/5 body.
Technically, it could be even better if someone like discards something that's multiple types. It's pretty niche, but it could happen.
It could happen. And then 8 mana to have each opponent sacrifice a permanent of their choice. Their choice kind of is meh, whatever, because they just sacrifice a 1/1, but it's not really gonna matter that much once you get it to flip to the other side. I like this card a lot. I might build this commander deck.
Oh no. What do you think about this one, Preston?
I mean, it's Grixis. It's doing what a Grixis deck wants to do. Be annoying. I mean, I would probably never build this, but I think it's kind of cool. You're putting enough investment into it. It doesn't feel bad if it pops off. Like they have to do 13 just to get it onto the other side, and then any more mana to actually start doing other stuff. I'm pretty fine with that, honestly.
Unless they're just swinging at you, like you transform it and then you swing.
Yeah, if you just have other creatures, the creatures dealing combat damage will do it.
But if you're gonna do all this, you want to hit them for like 13 a piece. Draw 39 cards. That's what you want to do.
You are in red.
Okay,
so
yeah,
you could just drop like oh gosh, what's
like Fire Emancipation or something like that that like amplifies the damage. Yeah, I mean, so I agree that it's best as a commander, but it doesn't seem terrible if you just play it in like a discard style deck. So do you guys remember the Nicobolus from the core set from a couple years ago? It was like this. It was a creature that came down, entered the battlefield, everyone discards a card, and they could dump a bunch of mana into it and it would flip around into a planeswalker, and the backside was crazy powerful. This reads a lot like that. And that card is just like okay in like discard decks, or if it's like some kind of reanimator deck and you want to reanimate stuff from your opponents, then maybe they might discard creatures. So it's probably, Kefka's probably okay in a deck that would think about playing that Nicobolus. And the more I think about it, you get something right away. You don't actually have to work that hard to make the backside even better, because when you do pay the 8 mana to flip it, everyone else sacrifices a permanent, which that's like a little bit of removal as well. So you don't actually feel that bad about doing it. And you are in black, so you have like coffers and stuff. You're in red, so you have like mana geyser. So it's not like that unrealistic that you're gonna have absurd amounts of mana in order to flip it.
Red and black are like the treasure token colors.
Yeah, so it actually just seems like okay, but it is best if you play it as a commander. And then yeah, if you get around to the backside, the dream is that you like deck yourself, which I think is actually probably possible. But I think even if you're just drawing a handful of cards here and there, it's probably good enough. Yeah, it's cool.
Also, for somebody that doesn't know anything about Final Fantasy, this is a sweet-ass character. This is a sweet-looking character.
Yeah, it's cool. All right. My next card is Tifa Lockheart. For 1 and a green, she's a human monk, 1/2 with trample. Landfall, whenever a land you control enters, double her power until end of turn. Guys, I just want to say that this is a really funny commander. That's all I want to say. I don't have like some big spiel about how like this is like, oh, a really interesting intellectual design that, it speaks to something meaningful. No, it's just like a scary Voltron commander because it has trample. And what is green really good at doing? It's really good at getting extra lands. And that doubles, and then that doubles, and then that doubles. It doesn't take much, guys. You play this, you get like some kind of extra land shenanigan. Maybe you have like an evolving wilds. Like this is like a monocolor deck that you would play those bad fetch lands just so you have extra landfall shenanigans. And then maybe you follow it up with like a scape shift, right? So you sack all your lands, go find that many lands. Oh my God, you are just killing people. So that's all I want to say. This isn't like the most complicated, interesting card of all time, but as a Voltron commander, this seems really funny.
Yeah, it's magic as Garfield intended.
Yeah, man. Green deck go burr.
You do 5 extra lands, it's a 32 power creature.
That's commander damage, baby.
Because it goes from 1 to 2, goes from 2 to 4, goes from 4 to 8, goes from 8 to 16, from 16 to 32.
Whoa, now you're playing green unnatural growth. You're going to double it again.
Well, you can't play lands during combat, silly goose. So you play all your lands before combat, and then you go there, and then it doubles again.
Yeah, it doesn't take much work. And like it's just not going to take that much work because that's just what green does. You got the rampant growth and the cultivates and the scape shifts and the fetch lands. Like it's exploration, your bounce lands. It's gonna be so easy. This is easy mode Voltron deck. Yeah, nothing else to say about it. I just thought it was funny. If it wasn't like such a pain to shuffle.
And now green has the best Voltron commander. Great, green has everything again.
Yay. All right, Preston, what do you got next?
All right, next up, I have Sid, Timeless Artificer for 2, a white and a blue, 4/4 human artificer, legendary creature. Artifact creatures and heroes you control get +1/+1 for each artificer you control and each artificer card in your graveyard. A deck can have any number of cards named Sid, Timeless Artificer, and cycling for a white and a blue. Discard it and draw a card. This just seems like a really fun commander to build around. You stuff like as many copies of him as you can, a few other artificers, and go burr with some big tramply artifact creatures. Seems like a fun time.
So how many do you play is the question, because it's legendary, right? You can never have, like, even though you can have any number of them in your deck, you can only have one on the battlefield at a time, which is why they put the cycling on there, right? So they're not just like dead cards, right? You just throw one away, draw a new card. It's adding to the buff, the +1/+1, the anthem gets bigger. So you want a good amount of these in your deck, but you also need to make sure you have room for all your veggies, right? You have to have your lands and your ramp and your interaction. And then you also need to have a decent amount of artifact creatures and heroes for it to buff. So the interesting question is, how many of these do you actually put in a deck?
I think you start between 25 and 30, and you start cutting them to make room for other artificers that you want.
See, I would say like 33-ish, and then you start cutting other artificers, or you start cutting it for other artificers. That way, a third of your deck is artificers, and then the rest of what you do is you play a lot of like mill, I guess, self mill, and just try to put it into your graveyard.
Well, they do
Um,
them that self, right? Because they have cycling. So I don't even know if you
yeah,
have to
but
do that.
I don't know. I don't know all of the great big mana stuff in blue and white. I mean, um there's that one instant that makes your blue tap for twice as
High tide.
much. High tide. There's high tide, so you could have a crazy high tide turn where you just cycle a bunch of these away, but then you also have to have the white to go with the blue. Obviously, this is a deck where you can throw in Smothering Tide so you can make treasure tokens, so you'll have ways to generate a lot of mana based on, how many tokens you can make. Um, but I'm just trying to think of the best way to like build the mana base for it and build the actual like because here's the thing. It's not artifacts. It's artifact creatures and heroes you control get +1/+1 for each artificer in your like that you control it in your graveyard. So like it doesn't actually buff with like just artifacts. It's really more of just a creature deck. So it's like it's really not an artifact deck.
What are
Which
you talking about? It buffs artifact creatures.
Yeah, but having mana rocks like only helps you for the mana instead of giving you like an added bonus, like a normal like artifact
Well,
deck
sure, but
probably might.
in Azorius, don't you play some number of mana rocks? Probably. Like
Well,
maybe it's
yeah.
better. Maybe it's better to play like the white catch up ramp and stuff like that. But like even then, catch up ramp only lasts for so long. So even if you put in a bunch of catch up ramp in your deck, eventually it's not ramp anymore. So then you probably want some number of mana rocks. So you're not going to not run those.
I'm not saying you
Well,
don't run them. My point is just it's not as good of an artifact commander as like a lot of other ones. But it's incredibly unique, and I just love that. I love that you can throw in as many of these things into the deck as you can. And like even if it dies, you don't really care if it goes back to the command zone. You could just play another one of the 30 that you have in your deck.
This is the one
Uh, so
commander I might just let resolve to the graveyard.
the only downside there is you're not getting commander damage because it's not your commander.
but
But
he doesn't like buff himself,
um
so he doesn't get bigger with his thing.
oh yeah, I guess he's not a hero, so that okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's like border cases where sometimes that would matter, but I think most of the time it would be fine. Yeah, I think it's the one commander I would actively let just resolve to my graveyard. I'd be like, okay, you got me, dude.
And for no other shenanigans other than I have 30 of them and I'll just play another
Yeah.
one.
So I think the correct answer is you play 15 because I think there's 15 of them because they all have different arts for the different games because it's like a reoccurring character or something from all the games. So I think that's how many you start with, and if you can find room for some more, maybe do that. I don't know. Is that not enough? Is 15 not enough?
It's not
Probably
Just
not.
get one of each for each color for each of the arts. That's not enough.
I mean, if you play like every other artificer, maybe. Because I will say, like the other artificers, they do generally just reward you for playing an artifact deck. Like you'll get stuff if you play artifacts, even if it's not creatures. They can turn your non-creature artifacts into creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple of shenanigans you can do with that. I already started kind of lightly brewing a deck. But also, I think what you want to do with this deck is play those big artifact creatures that already have trample. That way they don't need a huge buff and they're still getting insane value from it.
Wormcoil Engine go burr.
Oh, Warp
No,
Coil
Blight
Engine.
Steel, silly.
No.
This is the deck you're allowed to play Blight Steel with no negative repercussions.
Yeah, but Blaze kind of doesn't need the buff,
I
though.
mean, I guess the negative repercussion
that's
would
cool.
be you're playing Blightsteel and everyone else at the table hates you. I guess that's a repercussion.
You're playing Azorius. That was going to happen anyways.
Fair. Good point.
Well, speaking of colorless shenanigans, what do you have for your next card, Jason?
So for my next card, it's one of these summon cards, the enchantment creatures. This is Bahamut. It is a 9 mana Saga Dragon, a 9/9 with flying. So it's a saga. So when it enters, you put a lore counter on it, and then after each of your draw steps, you put a lore counter on it. So for the first 2 turns, when you put lore counters on it, you destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. The third one, you draw 2 cards. A little bit underwhelming so far. But then that fourth one, Mega Flare. This creature deals damage equal to the total mana value of other permanents you control to each opponent. That could just end the game, depending on the deck that you threw it in and your board state at the time. Like, if you throw this into an Eldrazi deck and you have, like, 3 Eldrazi's on the battlefield, 4 Eldrazi's on the battlefield, that's probably 30.
Could dome everyone for 30 damage or something.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's probably like 30 damage right there.
And you had 2 turns of a 9/9 flyer to hit him before that.
Yeah, seriously. So if this thing is able to stick around to that 4th turn, you could just kill everyone and like without even having to swing. Before your turn even really like gets going. And also, say you equip like a grafted exoskeleton to this thing, give it infect. Now you don't need 3 or 4 Eldrazi on the battlefield. You just, maybe you just have 10 mana worth of other stuff on the battlefield and you just kill everybody like that. So I think this card is really strong, and I'm excited to throw it into some decks. I already have a couple in mind.
Yeah, this very easily would have hit my top 4 probably if Jason hadn't had it on his. Easily one of the cards I'm most excited about. This one's awesome.
I have a colorless Kozilek Voltron deck. And this is probably going to go in there. Yes, Mega Flare is like super scary, and that I think in the right deck that probably ends games. But the first 2 modes I think are more interesting for that deck because it's like it's removal, it's card draw, it's a backup threat. But I just like having more options for colorless decks. And you know what? The big mana decks are still going to like it. The big creature decks are still going to like it. If you get tricky with the sagas, it's still cool there. So I think it's actually going to be quite flexible as far as what homes it can go into. I gotta say, guys, the summons, the saga creatures, these are some of the coolest card designs I've ever seen.
Yeah,
they're
honestly,
so freaking
they really
cool.
are.
They're
Also,
I think they're a little awkward, but they're cool enough to ignore that.
This goes with any of those. Proliferate. If you just want to just proliferate these counters and just get to the end quicker, you could also do that.
Yeah, and there's also some cards that let you like remove counters. So if there's just like one mode that you want over and over again, all the same normal shenanigans that you can do with sagas, that all still applies to the summons. I think the hardest thing about these to evaluate is the time that you have them, right? Because they can get swept up in a board wipe or removal the same way that any other creature could, right? I think there's 1 or 2 that are indestructible, but for the most part that applies, right? But even then, like the first chapter happens, it has summoning sickness. The last chapter happens, it gets sacrificed. So there's a very narrow period of time where the body itself matters. And for some of them, it doesn't matter. Like there's one that's kind of like a wood elves that's like ETB. It's getting you a land. That's good enough. I don't care what else it does. It's just a small creature. But this one is a 9/9 flyer. I wouldn't be smacking people with it. So that's like where it gets hard to evaluate some of these is like the fact that like actually the body does matter. It's not just the counters that matter. So I'm really excited about these. I'm really excited to see how they play. And I remember when Dominaria came out that I was like, hey, sagas, these are some of the coolest cards ever made. And you know what? Now you make them creatures. Now these are some of the coolest cards ever made. So yeah, big fan.
Yeah, and one other thing I want to say is you might not even swing with this card when you play it. You might just keep it up as a big old 9/9 flying blocker so that people can't do damage to you with their creatures.
Yeah, that might be true, but I feel like if you're that scared to not attack with your 9/9, that maybe you should have used one of those first 2 chapters to blow up that thing you're scared of.
Well, I'm not saying you're not swinging because you're scared to swing into it. I'm saying you're not swinging to protect yourself from people trying to swing at you, because you put this onto the battlefield and people are going to see it and they're going to know that you're a problem and they're going to start attacking you if they can. So if you don't have your 9/9 blocker up, somebody could just send 5/5/5s at you that they've built because that's what they're doing with their deck. So not necessarily not swinging it because you're afraid to swing into people, but just not swinging with it because it's a pretty solid blocker.
Yeah. Big body. All right, my next card is Tataru Taru. It's a dwarf advisor for 1 and a white, 0/3. When it enters, you draw a card and target opponent may draw a card. And then whenever an opponent draws a card, if it isn't that player's turn, you create a tapped treasure token. That ability only triggers once each turn. So I think on its face, this is a card that a lot of decks might just play fairly because like the cards that just like small creature, enter the battlefield, draw a card. The Spirited Companions, the Wall of Omens. If you're playing like a small creature deck or a blink deck, these kind of effects are already really good. And this one is better than basically all those other ones because it's a 0/3, so it's a better blocker than some of the other ones. And it also lets you do a little bit of politicking because you give someone else the option to draw. And it's probably also going to give you a treasure. So it's just automatically is better than a lot of the other options for this effect. But I almost wonder if it's even better than that because I think incidentally, people draw cards on not their turn more than you would think. Like if they have like, when so-and-so happens, draw a card. And I think that just happens more often in Commander than we realize. Like if someone has a heuristic study, if someone has a trouble in pairs, any of these kind of cards, Esper Sentinel, Tataru Taru is going to make you so many treasures. Yes, it is capped at 1 treasure per turn, but if those are the cards in play, it's still probably making 4 treasures a cycle, and that's really good ramp. In Commander, we're not pinched on card draw anymore. Basically, all of the colors can draw cards now, but mana, we still need mana. And Tataru Taru seems like a pretty efficient way to get there. What do you guys think of this one?
I wish that this card cost a little bit more mana and they did not include the sentence, this ability triggers only once each turn.
Oh, it would be too good if it didn't say that, though.
Okay, so heuristic study should just keep going unchecked.
No, you kill the player who played heuristic study.
Okay, yes, but
well, you should just pay for it. You should just pay for it, and people don't.
See, here's the thing, though. You would choose to not pay for it so that you can get mana, and it kind of introduces a new like political aspect to the game. Or it can help you generate the mana to pay for someone's heuristic study. And I just think that because heuristic study exists, this card should have cost like 4 mana, and that sentence, this ability triggers only once each turn, should have been removed.
Well, you can't always flicker it. You're playing white.
Yeah, true. But I mean, now you're spending more mana to get 1 mana. You know what I mean? And I think that this card is just fine. Like it's just fine. And I really, really wanted this card to be better after reading it. Like 4 mana, take away that ability, and now you're preventing people from trying to draw other cards. It almost acts like a stacks piece that way.
Well, no, because you're not stopping anyone from doing anything, right?
You're potentially stopping them from drawing cards because they know that if they do draw cards, you're going to make treasure tokens.
Yeah, I guess so, but that just seems like no, we're not going down that rabbit hole. There's no way that this is like the problem when heuristic study exists. There's no way that that's the case.
No, it's not.
So
I
think it needs to be once each turn, because then it could. I wonder if it could be. I mean, these treasures are tapped, so that's worth noting as well. Like you can't just use that mana right away. But I wonder if it wasn't restricted to the once each turn, if it could be in the conversation for it's too good, because then you have like, Smothering Tithe exists, right? That's on the Game Changers list. So I almost wonder if that would be too good. But I actually think that in some decks it's even better. Like, yeah, we already talked about Blink decks, and you could definitely build around this. But I think in just most white decks you play this anyways, because a lot of white decks care about little creatures. It triggers their card draw. You have the Sun Titan effect. So I'm just going to shave this in all my white decks and see what I think about it. What do you think, Preston?
You know what? Let's make it 3 mana, only once per turn per player. I think that's how you fix it.
So you would say maybe it should cost more, but maybe it should give you a little bit more treasures. That would be how you would make it. Yeah. Yeah, the cards would be better if they were better. That's for sure.
But I still like it.
You gonna try to find a home for it?
I'll definitely probably put this in my like 2-mana creature deck. My
I mean, you could do something like, whenever an opponent draws a card, if it isn't that player's turn, create a tap treasure token. This like if it's the second time, create 2, and then like you don't get any more after that. I don't know. I just want this card to be better than it is.
Well, I think this card's cracked. Let's move on. Preston, what's your last card?
All right, to close out the day, this is definitely my favorite creature of the set. This might actually make me build a CDH deck. That's how much I like it. Vivv Ornatier for 1, a blue, a red. It's a 0/3 legendary creature wizard. 0 at X mana in any combination of blue and or red where X is Vivv's power. Activate only during your turn and only once each turn. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on Vivv, and it deals 1 damage to each opponent. This card is awesome. Probably not healthy, but it's awesome.
It's going in Joyra.
I'm so happy that the mana ability is restricted to once each turn. But even then, it's so good, because what you do is you just cantrip a bunch, right? You play all these like 1 and 2 mana spells that replace themselves, and then like when you're finally a little pinched, then you activate it. And it's not just all blue mana, it's not just all red mana, it's whatever you need of the specific colors. Yeah, this seems toxic. And it'll probably get huge. Like, even if you're not winning with like some kind of storm finish or something, it's going to get huge. You might just be able to kill people with it.
Yeah, this might be the only
toxic. 100%.
This might be the only one of these where the red spells are better than blue.
Everyone should play this card. Everyone.
No.
Everyone should play it. It's so much fun. I love it. I think it's so cool. I cannot wait to put this in Joyra and bust it out onto the battlefield and then play 10 artifacts and just make this thing huge and then proc it for 10 mana and play 10 more artifacts, and oh my god.
Yeah, it's really scary in Joyra because Joyra has all of the like the Cheerios and stuff, right? Like the 0 mana artifacts, because then you can really go ham with this. I wasn't even thinking about the fact that it's doing the damage on the cast anyways, so you don't even have to worry about commander damage. It's just doing damage as you're cantripping anyways. Oh my god, this the game's gonna end on turn 5.
Yeah. Put a grafted exoskeleton on this bad boy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Preston, please don't build this.
Build it, Preston.
If I do, it will be a CDH deck, and it will be the only CDH deck I probably ever build. And if I do build it, I'm getting the $150 version.
What's that one do? Or what's it look like?
It's like the Final Fantasy sort of art.
Oh, yeah.
It just looks awesome.
That does look cool. I like it. All right. Jason, tell us about your last card.
All right, so the last card I'm going to talk about, it's a card I'm pretty sure we all know about at this point. It's a Realm Reborn. It's an enchantment for 4 and 2 green. It says other permanents you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. Talk about mana fixing. This thing for 6 mana is so good. It's so good. I just I love it. It's gonna go into every green deck that I think I have.
So obviously it's busted in all permanent based decks. Like if you're Enchantress, it's good. Well, it's an enchantment itself, so it triggers all your enchantresses, but it's also turning all of your dirtily enchantments into mana, which is kind of insane. And then obviously
also
your
turning
creatures,
all of the 1/1 elves that you just made into mana rocks.
Yeah. You know where it's the scariest, I think, is any kind of deck that you play Academy Manufacturer. Because then when you're making your clues or your treasures or your foods, then you're making all of those, and now all of those are also mana. There's got to be combos with this, man. Like there's got to be like any deck that's green that plays Academy Manufacturer, this goes in there. It's so busted.
I think you gave Jason a bit of a stroke when you said that. He had a reboot.
Oh man. I'm just so excited to play this card. I'm so hyped to play this card.
Yeah, what do you think,
Weren't you
Preston?
complaining earlier about Tifa Green getting too much? And then this is one of the best cards ever.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, green really needed something that turned all of their permanents into birds of paradise. It just wasn't good enough as a color, I don't think.
100%.
so I actually don't think that this card is like busted. I mean, like it's definitely like good, and in the right deck, it's probably part of your win con. But I don't think it's like outlandish that we gave green this card. Like, there's like Nyx Bloom Ancient, and there's there's
so
some.
now they all tap for 3 of any color.
Well, okay, sure. Like you can start doubling these up, but like green has like mana doublers. Green has ways to turn. Like there's like a couple like 1 and 2 mana ways to turn all of your creatures into mana dorks if that's really what you want. And then
right, I think, right?
Yeah. So if in certain decks there's better versions of this effect, but then like the different kinds of decks that would rather have this is still 6 mana and it's only part of the combo. So, I mean, yes, it's very brutally powerful, but I don't think it's like obscene. How dare they make it or anything,
Oh no, I'm probably gonna play it and stuff, but it's a growth card.
I kind of want to rebuild the Goose Mother just so I can put it in there.
Do it.
That would be so gross. Yeah, I'm excited to see this one. All right. Last card of the day. This is my last card. Kind of a boring pick, but it's going to get mega heavily played. We got to talk about. This is Livestreams Blessing. It's an instant for 4 green, so 6 mana. Draw X cards where X is the greatest power among creatures you control as you cast this spell. If the spell was cast from exile, you gain twice X life. And it has Foretell, which is cost for 4 and a green. So as far as these like draw X cards based on big creatures kind of spells, which there's a lot of at this point, this might be the best one. It's debatable. There's some good ones, like Rishkar's Expertise lets you cast something for free afterwards. Return of the Wild Speaker is 1 less mana and also an instant. But the incidental life gain, I think, is really important. Because that's often what makes life and death. Like it lets you use your Ancient Tomb more. It lets you play your fetch lands. It lets you, be greedy and not block so you can keep your utility creatures, right? So gaining that life is insane. And like, what if it's only like, oh, you have a 5/5? That's still gain 10 life. That's really good. So the Foretell on this seems super worth it, especially at instant speed. And it's even better than that because most of these kind of effects, the creature still has to be there when the spell resolves. So if someone's like, I have a 5/5, I Rishkar's Expertise, in response you Swords to Plowshare my 5/5, well, now I don't draw 5. Livestreams Blessing is on the cast, the X matters. So they just have to counter it if they don't want you to draw. They can't just remove your creature in response. So it's debatable, but this might be the best version of this kind of card.
I would go so far to say as it's the best version of this card, because of exactly what you just said. It almost makes it like unpreventable. Like you have to have it. Like you have to have the counter spell to stop this from happening.
Yeah, what do you think, Preston?
If it's not the best, it's tied for the best. Like I don't know how you could argue anything is straight up strictly better than this one of those sort of effects.
Yeah, any deck with green where you're swinging out with big creatures, this is going in there. This has to go in there.
So Preston, as the Stompy guy of the play group, what is the one that you would say is like, if one of these effects is giving it a run for its money, which one do you think it is? Because
there's probably be Rishkar's just because you get that free thing after. And I'm sure there's other ones I'm just not thinking of off the top of my head. There's so many at this point, but
I also think that Rishkar's might be the best one, but I also really like Season of Gathering, I think, from Bloomborough, which is the 6 mana sorcery one that gives you pause. In one of the modes is this, but then it also has the pause to like get rid of artifacts or enchantments and distribute counters and stuff like that. So it's more flexible. So that one's kind of good as like a pseudo wrath that also draws. So that one's cool. Rishkar's Expertise is also really good. But man, this one, this has to give it a run for its money. Like this has to. It's at least in the top 2. This is going in Yargle and Multani faux show. Or
Oh, never mind. This one's the best. It's an instant. Ignore everything else I said. This is automatically better than the rest because I think everything else is a sorcery.
Return of the Wild Speaker is an instant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What does that?
And then there might be maybe one of the effects that are like this that no one plays. Maybe one of those is an instant, but the upsides of the other ones lets everyone else play these. I don't know. But yeah, it's not the most exciting pick, but I feel like if you're a green stompy guy, this has to be one that you think about. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for our top cards. I think we talked about 12 cards from Final Fantasy. What do you guys think about the set? Let us know in the comments. If you have some favorite cards that we did not talk about, let us know. And is there something really important about the game that we need to know to make some of these cards make sense? Because we haven't played Final Fantasy. We don't get it. All right. But we hope you guys are enjoying the set. Don't forget, we will be at MagicCon Vegas. Come say hi. Like and subscribe. Do all the YouTube algorithm stuff. And we'll see you guys next week for another podcast episode. See ya.